Welcome to one of the most interesting projects involving economic forecasts of any type. Here we use something known as remote viewing to predict certain digital information accurately over a forecast period of 3 months. This forecast focuses on the cryptocurrency known as Ethereum, and the forecast period is from July 15th through October 15th. Remote viewing is a mental process that allows for the transfer of information across time and space. I'm Courtney Brown, director of the Farsight Institute, where we conduct a broad range of experiments using remote viewing in a large variety of settings and across a great many topics. Remote viewing was originally developed by the United States military and used for espionage purposes. However, Farsight is civilian, and we use remote viewing for scientific investigations and for exploration. Predicting digital information has always been a serious challenge for remote viewing, and this is due to the nature of the physics involved. But there have been advances in our understanding of the phenomenon, and we now believe we have the capability to do just that, using a new experimental design that resolves many of the issues encountered in past research. This is our third public forecast involving cryptocurrencies. Our first involved Bitcoin, and the second focused on Litecoin. Now, beginning with this report, which focuses on Ethereum, we are approaching the forecast a bit differently. In this instance, we are focusing on trend data for the high and low prices of the currency, as well as overall price volatility and timing. As those of you who watch the full report will see, this forecast offers what we think are very significant possibilities for financial gain. But as always, we begin with a disclaimer. No one at Farsight is a licensed financial advisor, so anything that anyone at Farsight does that relates to using remote viewing to predict financial or economic outcomes of any type, including the selling prices of cryptocurrencies, is done for entertainment and educational purposes only. Everyone doing investments are doing so at their own risk. These are experiments in remote viewing, and there are no guarantees being made, either implied or explicit. Nonetheless, these efforts are truly interesting on a grand scale, and I personally believe that after we do this for a while, it will be hard for anyone to ignore the reality of remote viewing. For those of you who are new to our work involving forecasting, a moment of background. We are using a new experimental design that resolves past problems encountered when using remote viewing to perceive digital information. Basically, with our new experimental design, our remote viewers perceive targets, which are locations that are designed using CGI software. The targets do not exist at the time that the remote viewers do their work, but the rules for creating the targets based on the future behavior of a cryptocurrency do exist now, and we can examine the remote viewing data now to determine how those rules will be applied in the future to create the targets. By seeing how the rules are applied in the future, we can predict the financial outcome. Using this method, we can predict how the cryptocurrency will perform over the forecast period, as well as estimate the level and quality of the volatility of the price changes. There are a variety of ways in which we can apply this experimental design, and this current forecast uses an approach that will be new to everyone. Basically, we obtain descriptive information for a target or location that relates to a currency's future price behavior, and the nature of that descriptive information depends on the qualitative characteristics of the price changes. After we see the type of descriptive information that is obtained using remote viewing, we know which set of rules will be used to create the targets. We currently are using 2 general categories of target creation rules. The first involves the overall complexity of a target, and that is what we used with our initial forecast using Bitcoin and Litecoin. Now, this is often very useful for general trend analysis where either increases or decreases dominate the forecast period. But the second category involves a more subtle analysis of the actual content of the remote viewing data, and this is what we are using with the current forecast for Ethereum. Both categories utilize a method known as masking with remote viewing, where there is a one-to-one mapping between a description of a physical location and financial behavior of a currency. If this sounds complicated, just don't worry about the specifics of the process. Rather, follow the results and evaluate the experiment based on the accuracy of the outcomes. For this Ethereum forecast, we have a 3-month forecast window. If hypothetical investors were using remote viewing data to base their buy and sell decisions with respect to a specific coin, the idea would be to use the predictive information to know when to buy and sell, as well as to be alert for when sudden changes in the prices of a currency may occur. Now, as with all investments, one buys when the prices are low and sells when the prices are high. So with a 3-month forecast window, one would wait for those high and low prices to happen and then buy and sell accordingly. With this experiment, we offer data that suggests approximate timing of the low and high prices within the forecast window. The key to making this work is to know if the changes in the prices will be sudden and/or significant so that the trends can be recognized when they happen. In terms of the forecast for Ethereum, this forecast predicts what appears to be significant changes in Ethereum's prices. So knowing what to look for and in what order should be important. Adding a bit more explanation for our current forecast approach. For this forecast, we use a mask to interpret the data. With this specific approach to interpreting the mask, it is a bit like interpreting a dream or story allegorically, and when done well, this approach to masking can be remarkably accurate. That is, physical features and characteristics that are perceived by a remote viewer to be at a target location represent certain things, and seeing what happens to those things in the data help us to know what will happen to things relating to Ethereum pricing. For example, structures are often used to represent institutions, significant individuals, and groups of some sort that trade in cryptocurrencies. Structures can also represent governmental institutions depending on the particular application. So, seeing what happens to structures in a remote viewing session tells us about what happens to the institutions, individuals, and groups who are trading a cryptocurrency. You will also notice that the remote viewers do not always describe the same scene. This is part of the experimental design. The rules that we use to evaluate the data are the same for all remote viewers, but they can perceive different scenes in their sessions. So there is no requirement for the viewers to have complete overlap in terms of the exact physical elements that they see in their sessions. The overlap occurs in the interpretation of their data with respect to the rules of the target creation process. Now, after you see the remote viewing data that we will use as the basis for this forecast, I will step you through how we analyze the data. We have also made improvements in the way we present our results so that the results should be more easily understandable to everyone in a practical buy and sell sense. Unlike some of our previous forecasts, we are not going to predict actual high and low price values. Rather, we are going to focus on qualitative trend data that will be more easily interpreted and, we believe, of greater value to investors given the nature of the results obtained. Investors fundamentally want to know if the prices are going to go up or down over a fixed period of time, and which happens first, the high prices or the low prices, and whether the price changes will be significant in a recognizable and meaningful way. This is what we attempt to do with the current forecast, and I personally think it will make sense once you see the actual results. Beginning with Melina Hall, then Princess Genet, and then Aziz Brown, here are the perceptual data for target 3A. Again, these data correspond to the high price of Ethereum over the 3-month period from the 15th of July 2018 through the 15th of October 2018.